everybody! This is the first video of a tip series, and today's video deals with visualizers, which are very handy when it comes to understand what's going on in your script and to see it on the actual geometry. I will show you the 4 main visualizers and how to create them, and at the end of the video I will show you also some little extras on how to additionally use these visualizers. So, let's get ready!
Back in Houdini, we start with this already prepared scene. You can download the file from the link in the description. We have a landscape scenery with a small village and a path to the mountain peak. We will use this setup to visualize different attributes in the viewport by creating our own custom visualizers. Visualizers are a visual representation of the data from your script shown on the actual geometry in your viewport. They are very handy, especially when it comes to understand what's going on in your script, which in Houdini is something needed all the time. There are different types of visualizers. The 4 main ones are color, text, vector, and text. You can already find some of them here in the viewport menu, like point number, normal direction, prim number, and so on. To switch on the custom visualizers, you need to click on this icon here. To create your own visualizers, you can either click D on the keyboard and then go to the Visualize tab, or you can right-click this icon in the viewport. Make sure to have the geometry spreadsheet open to see what kind of attributes are stored in our geometry. If you're missing it, you can open it here on the plus sign. Select New Pane tab Type, Inspectors, and Geometry Spreadsheet. When you start creating a new visualizer, you see that there is a Common tab and a Scene tab. Inside them, you can create the same visualizers. The ones in the Scene tab will be available only in the actual Houdini file, while the one created in the Common tab will be globally saved and available every time you open Houdini. The most common way to visualize an attribute is by its color. If you watch the previous tutorials on my channel, we often use this technique in our script. The difference now is that in comparison to the color node, with a visualizer we apply the color only in the viewport, without affecting the geo's color attribute. It can also be easily applied all the time during your work and on all the available geometries. We start by visualizing the height of the landscape. The corresponding attribute can be found here. To create a new visualizer, right-click on the visualizer icon and on the plus icon select Color. We specify a label and a name, like for example height. The type stays color. The visualization options are divided into the scene level, which is where we are now, and the geo level, which is inside our node. For the color type, we choose ramp from attribute and we use min max, so that we can remap our height values in between 0 and 1, which correspond to the range of the color ramp. Class is the type of attribute we want to access. In our case, it is a point attribute, and the name is height. We see that our height attribute is going from the value of 2 in the valley up to 190 on the top of the mountain. If you want to visualize, for example, only parts which are below a certain level, you can do the following. Set the range values to black out, so that values exceeding the max value will be black, and the ramp will be only applied to the rest. Slide the max value to see the effect. So in my case, I like to visualize the height in a color which is similar to the natural landscape. We can create another color visualizer to display the sedimentation on the landscape. which is stored here. You can name it, for example, structure, and the attribute is sediment. Adjust the min and max values accordingly. And now we have two color visualizers, which you can switch on and off at any time to visualize how your shape might work in terms of heights and where and how strong your sedimentation is applied. We can also visualize the actual value of the attribute in the viewport directly as a text. In the case of our height, we want to know the height value of a point in the viewport. This time select marker. Give it again a name and a label. And set the type to marker. Style is text. Class, again, point. And attribute, height. The problem we encounter here is that we have such a dense cluster of points in the scene that we can't see anything. Fortunately, there is a pretty useful visibility option called near pointer. Near pointer visualizes only in a certain radius around the cursor. And if we keep it very small, we can read out single points. Perfect. Pretty handy. Another very useful visualizer is the vector. It is used, for example, for the velocity on particles, forces, normals, tangents, and so on. You can identify vectors in the spreadsheet by its split in X, Y, and Z columns. In our menu, we can already find the point and primitive normal visualizer, but by creating our own, we have more options available for the normal vectors. Choose marker again and name it normals. The style is vector and attribute is n. Here you can change the vector length and the color. But additionally, the color can be related to the vector's direction. If we look at this demo sphere, we see the color is divided in axes and fades in between them. We can dial the min value very close to 1 to clamp out all vectors which are horizontal and to visualize in pink the ones which face upwards. The result is a vector field and a color information showing us where almost plane areas are distributed. In terms of text, here is also another option for the name tag. Select tag, and we see it is applying a little name tag representing the geometry, or more specific, the geonode. In our case, we can set a style to text only, because we don't need the icon, as we have only geonodes. Set the placement in the Behavior tab to above, and select Keep in Viewport, in order to show it also when the object is out of the viewport. If you keep Allow Selection checked, You can also select objects, including the node, through the tag. This is very useful if you have a large scene with a lot of objects and you want to have a better overview or easily select small elements. You can also customize it further here. In this case, I would like to see the name tag only when the object is selected. For this, uncheck Unselected at the scene level. Perfect. These have been the 4 main visualizers. In the Houdini file, I included also other examples of applied visualizers. We have an example of a name tag reading out a detail attribute from the node, which stores the amount of elements. In the case of the village, these are 200 houses. For the mountain, it is 1. Further on, you can see an example of a text visualizer for the type of house in the village. Here I randomly scattered 8 different types of simple block models. And with this visualizer, I can identify the distribution later. For another vector example, I made a tangent visualizer, which shows the direction of the selected curve on each point. As last, I used another text visualizer to display the length of the path a person has to take to reach the goal on the mountain peak. You can use the slider here in the node to change the hiker's position. If you want to know how to scatter different models on a landscape to create a small village scene, how to fast create landscapes like this one, or how to link channels and properties in your script, stay tuned for the next videos.
So, I hope you liked the video and to see you soon in the next one. Ciao!